Therapy with Sun Show. You know how we go. All right. So let's
Your
get it
show
pop.
now, press 1. To hear
It's
broken instructions,
identifying with
press 2.
something different,
It
a
appears
real
you're calling
thing.
back into a live
You
show. We are
identify,
reconnecting
I
you now.
identify. Do we really identify? Are we ready? Are we steady? Are we ready to get this thing in spaghetti? It's something that we eat, something like a tomato paste treat, but we gonna eat. Yo, check it out, right? Urban Therapy with Sun Show, and it's Sunday afternoon. I'm feeling pretty good, after a great Eagles win last night. Tonight we are talking about is identifying with something different a real thing. So you know how in the transgender community, transgenders really believe or feel like they identify more with being the opposite sex than they do with being the sex that they were born with. And many of us disagree with that. Many of us say, listen, you can't deny who you are or how you were born, and I would like to warn you that you can't do what you're supposed to. Well, we might have a different understanding or a different feeling about that at the end of this show, because we're going to talk about other areas of life where you might identify with something other than what you were initially introduced into, born into, groomed to be, or whatever. I'm not trying to be in a position to try to say that I'm pro this or anti that. People who know me know exactly how I feel, but I still take the time out to think, and it's real. And I will think that I could appeal to something that somebody else to and make a seal. Close it, make sure that we expose it. All right. So that's what we talk about today. Is identifying with something different a real thing? Are there other areas of life where we might identify with something other than what people say that we're supposed to be or what our station is in life? Can we buck the trend and begin to be what we feel and then tell a friend that we will be what we think we should? And if you don't like it, I understand your differences and it's all good and that's understood. It's identifying with something different, a real thing. What's going on? Stacy White, T. Carrie Wright, thanks for coming on through in the daytime. It's like night because it's a cloudy day and I stay making a different kind of way for us to play. Urban Therapy with Sun Show. I'm your host, Sun752, and this is the Urban Therapy with Sun Show. Is identifying with something different a real thing? Is identifying with something different than you were born into, born with, introduced to, raised up in? Is it a real thing? Have you felt this way about other things and never really thought about it? Well, we have some examples today that we want to explore. And I think that we should take a really, really good and hard look at a couple of these things that we're gonna introduce today and see if maybe there's more understanding or insight into this transgender thing than we may have given it credit for in the beginning. Now, this is a big deal for me because I don't get down with none of that transgender stuff, or I really don't. I all of the LGBTQ stuff. I have contempt for the organization, but I have no contempt for the person who may be suffering from this thing, because you know how it is when you are told something about a group of people. It can make you have something against or make you have prejudices towards that entire group of people. But when you meet somebody one-on-one, you may have a different view of what that group that person comes from is, because you see that, well, this person isn't like what I've heard other people say about them. So let's give an example like this. Have you ever met somebody from a different race or a different culture or a different country? Let's say like Let's say, remember back in the days, this is for all of my people born before 1990. Before 1990, because before 1990 was the Cold War. And the Cold War was the rumors of war and the potential for war between the United States and the USSR. The USSR, which is known as Russia now, but back then, when Russia had all of these territories, it was called the USSR. United Socialist something Republic. I'm forgetting what one of the S's was for, but it was definitely socialism. Anyway, so we had this view of what Russia was, a bunch of unfeeling, no religion having, cutthroat, warmongers. They were communists, so they didn't believe in capitalism. So to us, that meant that they didn't believe in freedom and all of this stuff. And so you might have met a Russian that defected before 1989. You had to defect from Russia if you were going to leave Russia and come to another country to live. You had to defect. In other words, you had to run away, because defecting meant that you could not go back. So you had to leave that country for good. So you might have met a Russian, and you may have, let's say you got close or cool or made friends with a Russian. And you may have found out that they weren't bad people. They didn't all believe in communism. Some of them, many of them, weren't comfortable with communism at all. And you may have also found out that communism wasn't as bad as American propaganda would lead you to believe that it is. My point is, when you meet somebody from a group that you've heard negative things about and have believed negative things about, it can color your view of that person or people who come from that group. And that's not really fair. That's how prejudice works. That's how discrimination works, stuff like that. That means that you don't even really know a person, but you already have a profile of them and an opinion about them that you have not gotten any proof about. So when you meet that person and when you get to know that person, you may find out that, wait a minute, these people aren't all that bad. This person definitely isn't bad at all. Let's find out what else is going on. Now, the reason I brought up that type of example is because you look at people that may have been from Russia, people that may have been from Cuba, people that may have been from North Korea, people that may have been from China. All of these places that I named were communist countries at one time or another. And without us being able to have access to those people, because we weren't allowed to go over there, they weren't allowed to come over here, unless it was like the Olympics or some type of sporting event or whatever. They had to have permission in order for them to visit and for us to visit there. So we didn't get a chance to know these people. So we wonder, like, if there's somebody who was born into communism, raised in communism, and only knew about communism, do you think that they all identified with the type of political and social structure and financial structure that communism gave them? Do you think that it's possible for them to have identified with something different, like maybe democracy, maybe a free trade and things like that? Well, obviously, there were many people who identified with free trade and with democracy, because what we found out after communism ended was that there was a big black market, a thriving black market in communism countries. Yeah, we know we can't have a McDonald's over here, but guess what? I got a McDonald's burger. Now, that's just an example. Or I got fries from McDonald's. Or guess what? I got a pack of Marlboro cigarettes. Somebody smuggled in Marlboro cigarettes. You've heard about Marlboro cigarettes. Marlboro cigarettes are like, it's like cocaine around the world. Something about Marlboro cigarettes. Other cigarette companies in the United States are one thing, but if you have a pack of Marlboro cigarettes anywhere around the world outside of the United States, that is gold. It's like a Cuban cigar. Real shit. They will pay top dollar. So let's say you're in the USSR and you got a pack of Marlboro cigarettes. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, you know, I don't know if y'all know a lot about politics, but in a communist country, nobody makes more money at any job than anybody else does. So whether you are a cook, a waiter or waitress, a doctor, they don't have lawyers. No lawyers. No lawyers. Because the law was cut and dry. But, you know, an engineer or whatever, you all made the same amount of money. Now, you know, come to find out that although everybody's check was supposed to be the same, not everyone was treated the same, and not everyone lived under the same conditions. That's the way it was supposed to be, but that's absolutely not the way it was the way that it went. So of course doctors got a little bit more. Of course engineers got a little bit more. Pilots got a little bit more. Military personnel got a little bit more. My point is, did all of them identify exactly with communism, or did some of them identify with the open market, an open and free market? Well, they had a thriving underground. So obviously there were some people who identified with democracy, identified with capitalism, identified with free trade, free market, and they was already doing it. So, okay. We don't know how far or how wide their identification with another political system spread, but we know that there were plenty of Russians, plenty of Cubans, plenty of Chinese and Koreans that wanted out. They knew that there was a different life and a different world somewhere else other than where they were, and some of them wanted to explore that. So they identified with a different system, a different way of life. If we can understand that, we might be able to understand how a man that was born as a boy might identify as a woman. I'm not gonna lie, I still don't get it. Because even if you identify as the opposite sex, you still are what you are. Why can't you just be gay? Why do you have to actually try to become a woman and live as a woman if you're a man? Why do you have to try to get a sex change and live as a man if you are a woman? Well, everything isn't for us to understand, but either we can understand identifying with something different or we can't. The difference between the LGBTQ community with transgenders and other areas where you might identify with something different or someone different are the laws that are created to protect this type of thing. As you know, there are laws to protect transgenders, not just from violence, but that actually allow them to use public bathrooms that are different from the gender in which they belong. At a previous job that I had, there was this man. I swear to God, I wasn't sure if it was a man. He definitely had some work done. He evidently and obviously had some work done to make him look like a woman. But I saw him using the male bathrooms, and I said, oh, well, it's funny. He didn't put up a fight about that. And I thought he was the type that maybe would put up a fight. He wouldn't use the male bathrooms the way he was supposed to. So obviously he didn't get all the work done. He may have taken some hormone shots, but he didn't go all the way through. And that's what I mean when I say I wasn't sure if he was a man or a woman. I didn't know whether he had gone the whole 9 yards or whether he was still a yard short. And he went in that male bathroom like it wasn't nothing. It felt weird. You in the bathroom and he comes with this fat ass and these titties, and we're like, hey, yo, shorty. He was not short. This man was about 6'2". Big. He wasn't like a big, strong, but he was big. You know what I mean? Like, he definitely looked like he could be on the court somewhere. Hey, it is what it is. Identify with something different than what you're supposed to be, who you are, what you were born into, how you were raised. Let's look at adoption. With adoption, you are born to the parents that you were created by. Your real mama and your real daddy. No way around it. Whoever your biological mom and dad were, that they are who you were born to. They are who you carry DNA information and hereditary information from. There's nothing you can do to change that. But since you have been put up for adoption, you will be raised and will grow into a family that is different from that shares a different DNA pattern and information than you do. So we have nature versus nurture. Your nature is your biological mom and your dad, but your nurture will be by your adopted parents. So your adopted parents will probably love you. They will probably keep you safe. They will teach you things. They will raise you. And they will give you their last name. And many adopted parents do not even tell their children that they have been adopted. So when everybody is wondering, well, how come this child looks so much different than the regular the rest of the family? Sometimes they look different, and sometimes they don't look all that different. But nowadays we have all of this crazy stuff with white people adopting black babies and shit like that. So of course they're going to look different. Like, it's kind of hard to deny that one. But people will tell kids anything. If you tell a kid that Santa Claus is real, you think they won't tell a kid that, no, that's your real father. You just darker than everybody else. A kid don't know. The world would have to shock him or her and let them in on the harsh reality that you are not their biological child. What are you talking about? The child is going to be like, yes, I am. Because you know what? He identifies with them. He feels or she feels like they feel. He thinks or she thinks like they think. They believe in the same thing that the family that raised them believes in. They understand things the way that they have been taught. They probably don't identify with their biological parents because they haven't been around them. They don't know. Now there may be similarities in thought, in feelings, and a whole lot of things that may not be spoken about or known or revealed about their biological parents that they feel similarly, but we don't know that yet. They're going to identify with their adopted family because that's all they know. There are plenty of people who were not adopted, who don't feel like they ever fit in their family, fit in with their family. They identify with another family. Maybe you know how lots of people are running around here nowadays saying, family ain't necessarily your blood. Skin folk ain't always your kin folk. So if you can identify with another family other than the family that you were birthed into, born into, raised by, brought up by, why can't you understand adopted children identifying with their adopted family? Now, there have been plenty of adopted children that when they found out that they were adopted, they said, I always wondered why this was that way and this was the other way. And I kind of always felt like an outsider in my family. We've heard people say that. Hold on, y'all. I don't know about y'all. Listen, when I hear water running, it drives me batty. And I'm sitting here doing this show, and it was quiet enough for me to hear water running. I'm like, what the? Yeah, the toilet was running. The seal with the flapper, I guess, wasn't all the way tight or whatever. I had to go fix it. Like, look, I'm sitting here trying to ignore it. Like, we're talking about transgenders. We're talking about adoption. We're talking about, family. I don't hear anything. I'm like, we good now. We good. So yeah, with adopted children, I'm sure that plenty of them have felt like, I actually identify with my adopted family, or I never identified with my adopted family. I knew there was something different about me. I felt differently. And that's the crazy thing about heredity. That's the crazy thing about DNA. Even though we talk about the nature versus nurture argument a lot, it's hard to calculate exactly how a person will feel on the inside, which will affect the things that they do on the outside. Many of us just suppress it. Well, this is what I'm supposed to be. This is what I've been told I am, so I'm just going to accept that. I'm not going to make any waves. It's going to be this way. Everything is going to be all right. And some people let it out like, I don't know what's going on, but I know I ain't feeling this. So, I mean, do you accept that? Do you understand that? Does that make sense to you? Can you understand how somebody might identify with something different than what their supposed station is supposed to be in life. Can you understand how somebody might identify with a different way of life or a different being or a different feeling than where they came from or what they were supposed to be? What about people who have a lineage of occupations? All of your family were farmers. You're supposed to be a farmer. Maybe you identify with being a businessman. Your farmer background, they like a what? A businessman. You know, to be a businessman, you got to go to college and all that kind of stuff. Well, you got to sell stuff. You got to leave the farm. Maybe your family has a problem with businessmen because they jerk them out of their agriculture, out of their products. You know, it's those damn businessmen that are always raising our taxes with the state, making it hard for us to be able to sell our grain, our corn, our livestock. Maybe your family has a lot against businessmen and lawyers because they are always being victimized by them. And here it is, you with your farmer background, you want to be a white collar suit. You want to be a suit. It could be a problem. It could be a problem. You identify with the person that makes the money, rather, or the one that signs the contracts, rather than the one who wears the overalls. You don't want you're ready to turn in your overalls for a business suit. Are you wrong? Probably not. You ready to get it shaken in business. But you might not identify. And you know what? I'll tell you where I know a story of just that. My father grew up on a farm. Very poor. They didn't have money. He always wanted to be a businessman. He wanted to be the guy who was making money and signing contracts and had people working for him. That's not how he grew up. That's not where he grew up. But he identified with a different way of life. Not that he had any contempt for the life that he came from, but he wanted something different, and he identified with something different, and he went with that. Didn't make him a bad or a good person. It made him different. He identified with something different, and he kept that identification for the rest of his life. It didn't separate him in an emotional way or a heartfelt way from his family, but it did make him have to take a different route than what everybody else was doing. Military people, what should I say? People who come from a military background, like all of your family, maybe they all, worked in the military, retired from the military, went to the military, and you decide, I'm not going into the military. I'm not doing that. I want to just go to college, or I just want to grow my hair with long dreads and wear tie-dye and smoke weed and practice free love. Like, wait a minute. You want to be a goddamn hippie? You want to be... Listen, first of all, nobody in this family wears their hair long. We don't do that. What are you, some kind of girl? What are you, some kind of sissy? What do you think, you a rock star? We don't have rock stars in this family. You're going to cut your hair short. You're going to go into the military and learn how to be a man and make something of yourselves. That's what you need to do. I don't know what's wrong with these children these days. That's that damn school I sent you to. Give you a false sense of reality the way the world works. Our family has been in the military all the way back since the Revolutionary War. For as far back as we can go, for when our families traveled over here from Europe, we have defended and served in the military. And you need to do the same thing. Talking about you want to save the world. You want to be in a Peace Corps. Hell, you could still be in the military and still be in the Peace Corps. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you, son? Come on now. You identify with something different. Don't want to go to the military. You identify with a more citizen type, civilian type of lifestyle. You want to be a civilian. A civilian? We protect civilians. Eleanor, this boy has lost his ever-loving mind. But the Marines will get him back. Identifying with something different. You identify with something different. Ansel Jones, my brother Ansel Jones, he says it's a totally different mind state. Okay. GK Wright says, I never identified with the stereotype of New Yorkers. Interesting. That's interesting. Because New Yorkers are normally so proud. They normally want you to know that they are from New York. I got 100 rounds, 100 clips. As I'm from New York. Yeah, they normally want you to know that they're from New York. So, but yeah, it's not out of the realm of possibility. I've known plenty of people from Philly, because Philly people are known to be very, very, very proud of being from Philly. They might not want to live in Philly, but anywhere they go, they normally be yelling, "Yo, Philly this, Philly that. I'm from Philly. I'm a John. I'm a John. That's my boy. That's my boy. That's my John. I'm a John. That's my boy." Yeah. But yeah, they might go down south, go to the West Coast, go wherever they go. But they want you to know, no, I'm from Philly. No, I ain't from New York. No, I'm not. Wrong one. Because, people from other places be like, Philly and New York, it's the same thing. Like, no, it really ain't. It's not. It's not. They have their thing. We have our thing. You think it's... Somebody from Philly might let you get away with calling them or saying that they sound like or whatever from New York. New Yorkers ain't going to let you put Philly on. What? Like, we are lesser than them. I don't care where you from. You could be from the South Bronx, Forest Projects, Edenwald. It don't matter. Like, no, Philly. Talking about something. We from Philly. They ain't having that shit. TK Wright says, most New Yorkers are renters. I always saw myself as a homeowner. That's interesting. And you're right. Most New Yorkers are renters. I mean, it's unbelievable. And so says, New York is dumb expensive. Yes, it is. It's ridiculous. And so is LA. And so is Chicago. And so is DC. TK Wright says, I am proud, but I'm not rude and a crook or loud. Do you talk fast so you can swindle people out of money? Come on. Come on, yo. Come on, yo. You gotta get this money, B. Look, it's not my fault. It's not my fault that them niggas, don't understand how this shit is supposed to go. You don't understand the game is gonna eat you up. You know what I mean? Step your game up, son. I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, we over here doing what we do. And so it says, I laughed at people that fought hard to say that they from the hood. Identifying with something different than where you come from, what you were supposed to be, how you were raised, what labels were placed on you. I mean, it's not that hard to understand. You know, funny thing. You know, it's funny. TK Wright brings up the whole never really identifying with being from New York or identifying with what most New Yorkers identify themselves as being. Look at Tupac. People, hip hoppers, especially the younger hip hoppers who weren't really around when Tupac was doing his thing, they don't understand. Listen, I get on Tupac a lot because, you know, there's certain truths about Tupac that need to be understood. Tupac was born in Harlem, New York, and he stayed in Harlem till he was 13 years old. 13 years of your life you spent in New York exclusively. You were born and raised in New York City. There is no way around it. Tupac moved to Maryland when he was, about 13, 14. And that's when he went to high school down there in Baltimore. That's how he knows Jada Pinkett. You know, he was doing his thing with the acting and all that old stuff. You know what I'm saying? He very talented. Then, after high school, he graduates and moves to the West Coast at 17 years old. I don't know if y'all see where we're going with this. He stays on the West Coast 17 years old, 18 years old, 19 years old, 20, around 20, 21, 22. But he also had a place in New York. He came back home to New York. When he first started rapping on the West Coast, you know what his name was? MC New York. That was his rap name. MC New York. So people told him that wasn't going to work with him being over in LA on the West Coast. So he started going with Tupac. Okay. So like I said, he came back to New York, had a place in New York, he essentially lived in New York. Where did he get locked up when he was accused of rape? He was in Rikers Island, New York. That's how much time he spent in New York on the East Coast. Suge Knight bails him out of jail and takes him back to LA, signs him to Death Row Records, and now all of a sudden it's California love. And then the East Coast, West Coast beef starts and all of this kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, it was like he made people forget that he was not from LA. He was not from California. He was not from the West Coast at all. Now, here's the question. Did Tupac Shakur identify with being from the West Coast? It looks like up until 23 years of age, he didn't identify with being from the West Coast. I don't remember him bigging up Oakland. He had some things to say about Oakland, but if you really think about it, he hadn't been up there all of that long. Tupac died at 25 years old. You spend the first 13 years of your life, you never lived to be another 13. You got 13 in New York, 4 in Maryland. That's a total of 17. You came back to New York. Okay, even if we gave him from 17 to 25, we talk about 8 years on the West Coast. If you want to give him the entire 8 years, okay. But did he identify with being from the West Coast? T. Carey Wright says apparently at some point he did. You know what? I wish he was here for us to question that, because I'm not so sure if he actually identified with being from the West Coast or if that was just something that he had to do for convenience, because now he's signed to a West Coast label that actually represents the West Coast in every way. So was he real? Was he fake? Everyone says that Tupac was so real. He was so real. Was he real? Was he real? Let's say if he wasn't Tupac, you think he would have been able to get away with that? Saying you from the West Coast when you're not? Wasn't born on the West Coast, wasn't raised on the West Coast, didn't come to the West Coast until you were essentially an adult, 18 years of age. If it was somebody else, you think they would have let him get away with that? You know how the hip hop community is so hood centered. No, I rep my hood. I rep around the way. You know what I mean? We from here. But did he identify with being from the West Coast? Whether you say yay or nay. If you say yay, then you can understand how somebody can identify with being something different than where they were born, how they were raised, what their station in life is. So, identifying with something different than what you were born into, is it a real thing? Do y'all feel any differently about it after we have been doing the show for 40, about 45 minutes almost? Any differences? You still feel the same? Make sure y'all hit that like button, y'all. Make sure y'all hit that like button, mash that thing, and subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the channel. Share the show. Subscribe to the channel. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, hit that notification bell so you will know when we are coming on, we are broadcasting, we are here, we out here. Make sure you know when we are out here. Because we out here. Yes, we are out here. Identifying with something different than where you come from, what you were born into. What do y'all think? Let's do some more examples. let's do some more examples. Let's see what we had. We got Tupac with the New York versus California or West Coast thing. We have adoption. Of course, we have the whole transgender thing, which is probably the father of this whole phenomenon. But what about people who don't want to grow up? Or that's what we say about them. People who are older but hang around with people who are much younger. And I don't know about the people that y'all know who fit this category, but the people that I know who seem to have tried to hold on to their youth have been doing that since they were very young. So I knew people who were like 3 or 4 or 5 years older than the people that they hung around with. And I thought that they were only doing that because they could run those kids. So let's say you 13 years old, but you hanging around a bunch of 8-year-olds, 8 and 9-year-olds. Why? Because they'll, you're bigger than they are, you're stronger than they are, you're more influential than they are. You can get them, everything you do, they eyeing and ooh and like, ooh, wow, Danish, dang, ooh. Kept that same energy as you grew up. The older you got, the younger the people that you hung around with or chill with or groomed or had near you were. They were just younger than you. Sometimes that can be sinister. Sometimes it can be criminal if we're talking about pedophilia or whatever. But let's keep it away from all of that. Let's keep it on a level where we're not talking about any criminal behavior, anything deviant. People who, let's say, if I don't know, 50 years old, but they hang around people in their 30s, people in their 20s, and all that kind of stuff. They dress like them. They still go to the clubs. They still talk their slang. They still, they still have that youthful way. Could it be that they identify with being younger rather than being at the age that they are? We say that they don't want to grow up. They just don't want to grow up. They're just immature. Is that it? Or could it be that they identify with being younger than they are? And maybe they have always identified with being younger than they are. Could it be? 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 Can you imagine a 40 or a 50-year-old, maybe a 40-year-old, but can you imagine a 50-year-old listening to mumble rap or trap music? I can, because I've seen it. Like, you like mumble rap? Well, some of it is good, you gotta, if you check this one out and that one. And trap music ain't nothing but another version of gangster rap. And we grew up with gangster rap. We created great. Okay, I got you, homie. I got you. I see what you're saying. Mumble rap? Maybe they can see the value in it. They can see the good points that everybody else might not be able to see. It doesn't get on their nerves, or they don't yearn to hear the old tunes. Like, don't nobody want to hear no Rob Bass or no Nas. I mean, speaking of Nas, how is it that rappers like Nas in particular? I can't even say nobody else, not even Jay-Z. How is it that Nas is respected and seems to be able to fit in with every hip hop age class? Nobody calls Nas old. Isn't that weird? Jadakiss. How is it that Jadakiss and Nas never get pushed into the old school rapper category? Do we identify them with the current generation no matter what? Maybe even some members of the Wu-Tang. I think that Raekwon, the Jizza, and all of them, they might be pushed into an older category. But that damn Ghostface, he seems to be able to hang around, doesn't he? Like they'll make it, these younger rappers will still they'll call Ghostface in for a feature, not necessarily Ray, but they'll call Ghost in, they'll call Nas in. If you've been paying attention, maybe identifying with something else is not something that you even have the power to do or necessarily have to do for yourself. Maybe sometimes other people identify you with the current or younger generation, regardless of what you do. Have you ever heard anybody call Nas an old school rapper? Think about it. Nas made his first record ever in 1991, live at the barbecue on what was the name of the group with oh man, what was the name of the group? They had the song Looking at the Front Door. Dope song. What was the lead rapper? God damn. Large Professor. The Large Professor. Main Source. That was the name of the group. Main Source. That was the first time Nas ever appeared on a record. 1991. He came out with his own LP in 1994, which is considered the golden age of hip hop. 1994, Nas. Illmatic. People still respect the Illmatic album to this day. Like it's still current. Was he ahead of his time? Possibly. He's still alive. He's still well. He's still making music. He's still relevant. How? Could it be because we identify Nas with being from any generation? Wherever you want to go, Nas, you can go. Nas is almost 50 years old. He ain't no baby. Nas is almost 50. If you have old school hip hop shows, Nas should he could be right there. The only thing that's probably keeping him from being there is the fact that he started out in the 90s instead of the 80s. If he had touched any part of the 80s, he would be on those old school hip hop shows with Big Daddy Kane and Houdini and Rob Bass and rest in peace, Easy Rock, rest in peace, Ecstasy from Houdini, but those guys, Salt and Pepper in them and everybody. So, but can older people identify with being younger legitimately? Could it be that they listen? I never felt the age that I am. They might say, I never felt the age that I am. I always felt younger. I always felt more vibrant. I always felt, more vitality than whatever age I was in. Sir, You're 91 years old. Yeah, but I identify with somebody in my 70s. I could do what any 70-year-old can do, and even more. The power of the mind comes to my mind when we start talking about this. When we talk about identifying with something other than what you're supposed to be. And who says that you're supposed to be something? Well, that's a strong argument when it comes to the transgenders, because whether we say that they're supposed to be or whatever, their hardware is what it is. It's hard to argue with hardware. Your software is what you put into it. But your hardware is either a penis or a vagina. Your hardware is your penis or your vagina. You ain't getting out of this one, son. You ain't getting out of this here one. No, I'm talking about. No, I'm talking about. And so Jones says, I had 4 years of Marine Corps J ROTC, junior ROTC, and high school. That's not considered a real Marine. But that's true. And I don't think it should be considered to be a real Marine, because what if you don't go into the Marines? What if you go into the Army or the Navy? Do they have specific, like, branch of service specific ROTCs? And so Jones says, call RZA for beats. Do they still call RZA for beats? It seems like producers always have their time, you know what I mean? Where they hot and they controlling the whole radio and the streets. You know what I mean? Right. But identifying as something different. Identifying with something different than what you're supposed to be, where you grew up, where you were born. Talking about Tupac earlier, possibly identifying with being from the West Coast when he was born and raised on the East Coast. What I mean, and T. Carey Wright talking about how she never identified with being from. I mean, no, never identified with the stereotype of New Yorkers. Well, that's it. Not identifying with the stereotype of New Yorkers is one thing. You're not necessarily saying you don't identify with being from New York, which is cool. If that's what you want. But identifying with being from another hood than the one that you were born into, I don't think that's any different than identifying with being. Hold up. Let me switch it for a minute. Because we talk about being from one hood, but identifying with being from another hood, we can also tie that into this next example I want to use. And that's the example of, how we talk about people being bougie. People being bougie. But we associate people who are bougie with people who have money. Well, what about our broke bougie people? And you know some broke bougie people. You know some snooty, conceited, stuck up people who ain't got no money, who don't have a lot of stuff. Well, where'd they get their bouginess from? We can say that they're just cliquish. They're cliquish. But there are some people that I know and that you may know who are broke and bougie. Well, how do you get to be that? Do you identify with being high class, upper class, when you're not, you weren't born into that. You don't belong to that, but maybe you feeling it. Exposure. Exposure might bring this thing on. Being exposed to a different way of life and a different way of living and a different economic class than the one that you were born into or come from or even are a part of can change the way that you feel about things. And when you think about it like that, I guess it isn't that hard to understand. Maybe. Maybe. Now, if you're bougie because you're rude and you look down on people and you're insulting to people, that's one thing. But what if you're just bougie in that you don't like cheap stuff? Like, listen, I know I ain't rich, but I ain't shopping at no Walmart, and there is no Target in my world. I only shop at high-end department stores. And if you buy me a gift, don't buy me no gift from no Five Below. Don't buy me no gift from no Family Dollar, Dollar Tree, Dollar General. No. We not doing none of that. Don't even buy me nothing from JC Penney's, Walmart, or Target. See, that's when it starts to get a little, that's when it starts to get dicey and offensive. But maybe you are broke and bougie, or not rich and still bougie, because that's what you identify with. High-end stuff. Look, if you don't have the money to buy me something from the stores that I wanted bought from, then just don't buy me anything. No hard feelings. No hard feelings. We good. We good. Hey, yo, my nigga, we good. It might be that way. T. Carey Wright says, I didn't fit in Queens. You didn't fit in Queens? Queens is the biggest borough. And I don't care what nobody say. It's the best borough. You know why? Because they got houses in Queens. Queens was the birthplace of modern hip hop. It was. The Juice Crew was from Queens. LL was from Queens. Run DMC was from Queens. Russell Simmons was from Queens. Where would hip hop be if there was no Russell Simmons? Did you identify with being from the Bronx? Did you identify with being from Harlem, Manhattan, lower or upper east, west side? Did you identify with being from Brooklyn, always funky fresh? Brooklyn. TK Wright says, I felt at home in Folly. Where? Where's Folly? She probably means Philly, but she spelled it with a lowercase p. Savoy says, Savoy, build and destroy. She says, my brother was in the ROTC, the Marines. ROTC? I didn't know that they had branches of the ROTC. I didn't know that. I thought it was like some kind of blanket military. Hold on, let me see. Make sure y'all know what y'all talking about. We'll get to the bottom of this. Are there branch Oh yeah. Look, US Army ROTC. Wait a minute. Okay. 3 branches of the United States Armed Forces offer the ROTC program: Air Force, Navy, and the Army. The Marine Corps and the Coast Guard do not offer ROTC programs. However, graduates of ROTC programs are accepted into these branches of the military if they apply to them after graduation. Which ROTC military branch is right for you? Mm. I'll read that again. Is ROTC considered branch of the armed services? 3 branches of the United States Armed Forces offer the ROTC program. That's Air Force, Navy, and the Army. So how do you explain that's a boy? You too, Ansel. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Huelo la rata. In other words, I smell a rat. TK Ray says, there are houses in every borough. It depends on how you look at it. You know what I mean? Yes, there are houses. You know exactly what I mean. You know exactly what I mean. In Queens, there are mostly houses. You can't say that about Brooklyn. You can't say that about, you definitely can't say that about Harlem. I mean, if you want to talk about brownstones, I'm talking about the majority. Look, I've been in New York. When we was little, we was humping our asses up to New York all the damn time, at least once a month. Buildings. In front of the building. Meet me in front of the building. We got to go up in the building. In the building. She said, I'm driving. You know I meant folly. You know I meant folly. A Philly. So it says that's how he got in. How's how he got in? Well, he went to Army ROTC and then and then um and then went into the Marines. Is that what you mean? 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 Nonetheless, TK Wright says Staten Island is mostly houses. That's true. But that's not New York. There used to only be 4 boroughs in New York, and Staten Island wasn't the 4th one. I don't know when. Let's look that up. When did Staten Island become a borough of New York? Because that. When did Staten Island become let's see here. Oh shit. Yo. Never mind. Why did they used to say it was 4 boroughs? Staten Island became wait a minute. Okay, wait. Okay. Staten Island became a borough in 1898, but evidently it seceded at one time. Okay. Why did Staten Island secede from New York City? Since New York City's consolidation, the boroughs have mostly cooperated with one another and have united into the most populous and perhaps most well-known city in the United States. Despite this, however, Staten Island tried to secede from the city in the 1990s to become its own city and country. Really? I mean, city and county. That's weird. In the 80s, 70s, they always said it was 4 boroughs in New York. And never Staten Island. But what do I know? What do I know? I ain't mad at him. Staten Island. So boy says, I don't know how they do it now. Okay, cool. TK right says it says Philly blind man. I'm going back to the original. Folly. Folly. I'm from Folly. I'm born and raised in Philadelphia, New York. Yeah, right. Said they tried it. Yeah. Out of all of the times I've heard somebody say they tried it, it was never funny to me. Yeah, you gotta chill. Why is that so funny to me? Like y'all want to be your own county? Y'all want to secede from New York? They try. Go Staten Island, Shallon Island, Shallon. Yep, 5 boroughs. I don't know. Yo. They tried it. Oh God. Oh God. Oh God. You gotta chill. Y'all gotta chill. All right. 5 boroughs. There we have it. Staten Island with the ferry. You need to get on the ferry. Hey, they get to the ferry. I don't care what nobody says. Staten Island is in Jersey. It's on the wrong side of the river. It's in Jersey. Okay, if Staten Island ain't in Jersey, how come you don't have to cross no bridge to get from Jersey to New York? As long as you go to Staten Island. Answer me that. I'll tell you why, since y'all was hesitating. Because Staten Island is in Jersey. And Jersey is really in Pennsylvania. Look on the map. It covers the whole east side of Pennsylvania, stopping us from getting to the Atlantic Ocean. I don't know who approved it. TK Wright says we actually was like, keep them in out of spite. I don't know why. Y'all never liked Staten Island anyway. They was the red-headed stepchild of New York. And it's probably because they was really from Jersey. They from Jersey? What time is it in Jersey? I'm in Jersey. What time is it in Philly? When it's 1 o'clock in Jersey, what time is it in Philly? Identifying with something different than who you are. Have y'all ever felt that way? Have you ever identified with something? You know, like, I ain't from this family. I mean, I'm not from this family. I identify with being from, whoa. How about this one? You know how, like, a lot of people, let's say your mom and your dad are separated from each other, and you were raised by your mom, and maybe didn't have any connection or contact with your father's side. Don't a lot of people identify with only their mother's side of the family instead of their dad's side of the family? Now, I've definitely seen that. What say you? What say y'all? I only identify with my mom's side of the family. They my real family. My dad's family, they was never there. They never did nothing with for me. I don't identify with them. Could it be? 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 I know that y'all have seen that done. It's not a foreign concept, right? Identifying with a different family. Or only identifying with the family that you grew up in. Or maybe just maybe, even though you never had a lot of contact with your father's side of the family, or the least active side of the family, whether it's your mom or your dad, maybe you identify with the other side. Like, my mom's side of the family got nappy hair. My dad's side got good hair. I got good hair. I identify with my dad's side. I'm a Johnson, not a Jenkins. 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 Johnson smells good. Not the Jenkins. They be stinking. Johnson, not a Jenkins. Johnson, not a Jenkins. Johnson, not a Jenkins. This is Johnson, not a Jenkins. Johnson, not a Jenkins. Yo, Johnson be stinking. No, they don't be thinking. Johnson, not a Jenkins. Johnson, not a Jenkins. This is Johnson, not a Jenkins. Johnson, not a Jenkins. This is Johnson, not a Jenkins. I'm a Johnson, not a Jenkins. Yo, them Jenkins be stinking, and I ain't thinking that I'm a Johnson like Charles Bronson, but I'm the Bronson. I'm a Johnson. Because Johnson is the one that showed me love, and those Jenkins be stinking. They think they above the Johnsons, but they not. And I'm happy with who I am, where I come from, and what I got. Johnson, Johnson out of Jenkins. Johnson out of Jenkins. Johnson out of Jenkins. Cool. Okay. So, I mean, probably a lot of us can probably relate to that. Let's do these birthday shout outs. We have some birthday shout outs to do. Some people were born on this glorious January 22nd. And they deserve to be acknowledged. So let's go about our business of acknowledging them and making them feel special because they are special because they are special because they are SPECIAL. They get the RESPECT. They are SPECIAL. They get the RESPECT. They are SPECIAL. They get the RESPECT. They get number one out the box, Desiree Sherry Smith. Happy birthday to you, Desiree. And also Jerry Henderson. Happy birthday to you. And also Carla Stocks, turning 51 years old today. And Callie Queen, my girl Callie Queen, turning 33 years old today. And Cynthia Green, turning 46 years old today. And Heidi Diaz, turning 44 years old today. And Rhonda Jones, turning 53 years old today. And Latasha Reed, turning 47 years old today. And Sherry Thompson, my girl, my big sis Sherry Thompson, turning 60 years old today. And Lonnie Webb, happy birthday to you, my man Lonnie Webb. And also, last but not least, going all the way back to the 1982, my girl Misty Fuller. Well, it says that her new name is Misty New Creation Fuller Powers. I don't know if she's married. I know that, she's very spiritual. I think she's into her ministry. Anyway, happy birthday to you. I want to say happy birthday to all y'all. And anyone else out there who shares this birthday on this glorious January 22nd, anywhere out there in the world, worldwide, internationally, and universally. All of y'all go ahead and turn up. But don't turn up too loud. Just turn up loud enough so everybody can hear you. Rock out, rock on it, do the damn, rock out, rock on it, do the damn, rock out, rock on it, do the damn thing. You do your thing, y'all. Represent the queens and kings. You do your thing, y'all. Represent the queens and kings. Good things happen to those who wait. Great things happen to those who grind. And anything can happen to those who go for theirs. So go hard, go for yours. And remember, man, listen, check it out. Yo, beat this. Sometimes you identify with something different than where you were born, how you were born, what you were born into, what you were supposed to be, what people said that you are. And I guess a lot of it would have to depend on what you accept or how you accept people telling you where you come from, what you should be doing, and who you are. You don't have to accept that. Maybe sometimes there's validity into it, and sometimes maybe there's not. Maybe sometimes you have to just go with what you feel. Now, as far as the transgender argument is concerned, I can't speak on it. What do I know? What do I know? I don't know a lot when it comes to that. I can't defend. I can't defend that. I can't necessarily offend or totally write how they feel off as being totally irrelevant or out of bounds, because there are other areas where we may feel the way that they feel, just not about what they feel about. But somehow, if you can relate to someone, or you can identify with their struggle, it can bring people together. And I'm about bringing people together, good people. So we can get into that. Don't get me wrong, though. I'm very much a separatist too. But hey, that's because I'm a gangster. And my gang, okay, anyway. Peace to all my day ones, my everydays, and my brand news. I love y'all to death. Resuscitate y'all. Love y'all right back to life. We will be back on tomorrow night, 7 p.m. for the Daily Go Get It Business Show. So make sure y'all come on through. And make sure you do what you gotta do. Ooh, 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 ooh. I want y'all to have a great night. No exceptions. Great day. No exceptions. So let the sun shine in. Face it with a grin. Try to have a great day, man. All right. Make sure y'all hit the like button. Make sure that y'all share the show. Make sure that y'all subscribe to the channel. If you ever subscribe to the channel, yeah. All right. And peace, Emily Dunlap is in the house. Bow. She about to turn it out. All right, so Blog Talk, we gonna get you out of here. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I said yeah, yeah,
90
yeah,
seconds.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
And for my YouTubers, you know just how we do, but thanks for coming on through. See you on the other side, my boobas. Yeah, on the other side, my boobas. Yeah, on the other side, my boobas.